All right, all right. I get to wait to do another episode of Live Multi-Purpose Show, and today I have Doug O'Brien on. Doug, every time I get an opportunity to do one of these shows, every time I get the opportunity to talk to people who are making life happen in a big way, I just get excited. I get excited about just the possibility, and then just the networking that I get to do. You know, I've done about 400 podcasts now, a little over 400 podcasts I've done in the last 3 years. And through that, the amount of people and the amount of knowledge that I get, I say that I'm the luckiest person, that gets to do these because I get to host them and I get to pretty much, I try to close my mouth and open my ears because even though it is my show and my show is there, it's not about me. It ends up being about the guests that come on. It's about me growing and learning and making sure that I know. But then if I were talking the whole time, then the guest that's on there doesn't get to tell me their story. And I get to hear my voice all the time. I hear it in my sleep. I hear it when I wake up. I hear it, in the afternoons, and so I don't know, for some people who just want to hear their voice even more, it just seems so funny to me because I just want to hear what everybody else has in life and then be able to put together some really cool things that we can do. I'm starting a community that's going to, on October 4th, we're launching. It's called Becoming the Person Universe, and it's going to be dedicated to all of the folks that want to have a better life. I just finished a book that comes out next week called Be, Do, Have, the Ultimate Success Principle, and what does it mean to become? And I say becoming because I don't know if we ever can become, because as soon as we hit the level that we were trying to become, then we still want to, hit another level. And so just so excited about, getting that out there and having people, and all of my podcast guests are considered founders of the Becoming the Person Universe. And so we'll invite you to that and, have you be able to come on and if you would like to share more stuff with our folks. And I actually, the book that's being published that comes out next week, I wrote it, last year, but I just finished one called Relationship versus AI. So I've been using AI like crazy, trying to not only write the book, but I want to tell you guys, Doug is real. He's not. He's not.
Prove it.
I promise you that I'm not making up my guests now and having conversations with a computer and making it seem like so. But just all the things that go into relationship. And so the reason I said it, because I'm so excited about the relationships. And the reason I'll never stop doing this podcast is because that is what relationships are. As much AI is out there, it's not going to take the place of empathy. It's not going to take the place of some of those other things. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about that as we get going. But before we do that, if maybe you can just share with us, who you are. Like I ask all my guests to share where they came from. And, like I said, you can tell your story wherever you decide that it should begin. And then you can't get it wrong. Sometimes my guests are nervous about telling their story. So like, even if you lied, there's absolutely no way I would know that this didn't happen to you when you were like 13 years old. So just, please share with us. I can't wait. Then we'll chop it up after that and have some fun. But welcome to the show. Thank you for being on. Thank you for taking your time today to be part of what we're doing.
So it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. So my story, golly, interestingly, I, like you, listen more than I talk to people. I have my own podcast. I have a podcast called the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. And yeah, I have had a few solo shows or just me talking, usually encouraged by people who say, I want to hear from you. So I do that. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, I want to interview other people. I'm learning, I have been around the block a few times. I was born, a long time ago, in Buffalo, New York, and moved to New York City, where I am now currently residing, in 1980 to play in a rock and roll band. I was a rock and roll musician. I was a classically trained pianist, but I played Carnegie Hall in April of 1980, and I was playing the CBGBs by December of 1980. So a little varied approach to music making. But CBGBs, for those of you who don't know, is a punk rock center back in the 80s. And so, yeah, I was in a punk rock band. My first punk rock band was called Ultraviolence because,
Really?
yeah, that's
It's cool. Yeah. Ultraviolence. Okay. That's a appropriate name for the 80s. Absolutely. 100%. We were all wearing the
it wasn't, I didn't come up with the title. So you just, so you know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So then, I was playing music in different bands. That band lasted about a month. I mean, it was a very volatile time, let's just say. So that band, it was more than a month, but it was a short-lived band. And you can actually find it in some history books, but it was, different members every couple of weeks that people came and went. And I came and went in about 6 months' time. So my next band, we stuck around for a few more years. We were playing bigger venues like Studio 54 and stuff. But somewhere around 1985, my girlfriend at the time dragged me kicking and screaming to this Tony Robbins workshop, a firewalk experience. And Tony, nobody knew who Tony was at the time, including me. He was this 24-year-old kid. He hadn't written any books yet. He was doing this firewalk experience at a whole life expo, where people put pyramids on their heads and stuff. So it was pretty wacky place. But I went because, I had to. And it was really cool. I don't know if you've ever been to any of that sort of thing like that, but Tony is an amazing speaker. And he did this amazing seminar all about, how you use neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, to change your thoughts, change your internal representations, and thus change your experience. Even so much that you could walk across hot burning coals. And it worked. It was amazing. I didn't burn myself, and it was like really, really cool. I wanted to learn more. So long story short, I did. I got in onto the staff, and I was a musician, so I had no money, but I had sweat equity, if you will. So I sort of worked my way up to go into the certification course, and I went to get certified in NLP. I got certified in NLP.
Okay.
While I was there, I got interested in more because NLP seemed to be kind of, even the people who are really good at NLP could even do Ericksonian hypnosis. So I wanted to learn more about that. That sounded really cool. So I did. So I started studying all this stuff. And by 1990, I had left the music world behind and was doing NLP and hypnosis full time.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I became the center manager for Tony Robbins' office in New York City. I was bringing him. I became a master trainer for his organization. I was with him until 1995. Yeah. So I've been doing this as a full-time gig since, whatever 1990 is till now.
So you've been with Tony for 30 some years, or
no? I quit Robbins Research in 1995.
Okay.
Sorry, 1995.
Okay, gotcha.
So 95, I said, I keep starting a business, then I go out to a seminar with Tony, then I start my business, and I just go out to a seminar. It's like I should probably buckle down and just focus on my own stuff. So in 1995, I started doing that.
Yeah, I remember I think it was early 2000s the first time I went to, Unleashing the Power, whatever, and, did we were in LA somewhere, and we, out in the parking lot and, walking on the hot coals, and, that was so cool to be able to do that. And then, since then, been a super fan of all the stuff Tony's done, but, I never, jumped into his organization, or, I wanted to go to Date with Destiny for a while, then end up going to like a Tom Hopkins one, or all these other folks that are out there that I've been, for the last, since the, late 90s, jumping into different things and doing stuff. So that's so cool and interesting that you were able to do that. So I guess my question would be, since you've been doing that all these years, and Tony talks a lot about identity. And so what was like before you went to, to Tony Robbins, like, who did you believe you were? And then how did it change over time? Because I can't imagine going to seminar after seminar to seminar that it wasn't like exponential in your growth. Maybe talk about that a little bit.
That's why I am the God that I am today, because I kept going to those seminars. I have absolutely no problem. But yeah, so great question. Thank you very much for that one. I just realized my phone is on. I should probably silence it at least. I was trying to contact you.
Were you? Okay.
I was late for the seminar. For this, Anyway, so I'm sorry. What was your question?
I was asking about your identity in Tony Robbins and exponentially growing in your identity.
Yeah, I know. I was just kidding. I was just trying to buy some time. So yeah,
I love it.
my identity was that I was a musician, and I still have that identity. I still play piano and stuff, but it was hard. Music life is difficult. If you're not like a star, and probably even if you are a star, it's a difficult life. But you know, if it's a difficult life and you don't make money, it's extra difficult. So my musician, I was like a starving artist was my identity, and I was okay. I charged $25 an hour for piano lessons, and you know it was cool. It was cool. I met some really interesting people. It was fine. But as I started getting into the Robbins world and into Tony Robbins's identity shifting, paradigm shifting, Date with Destinies, and also of course all the other stuff I mentioned as well. As an example, Robert Dilts, who created this field of, well, it's a sort of a subset of NLP called sleight of mouth. He has this idea that we have the highest logical level, 5 logical levels, is our identity level. And then there's actually 6 and 7 levels where you go to purpose and mission beyond your identity. But a lot of what you do to set up an identity is your behaviors. The more you do something, the more it becomes who you are. Like as an example, if I take up running because I'm overweight and I want to combat heart disease, and so I start running every day, pretty soon I'm running better and better, and after a while, I'm a runner. Right? I'm not just a guy who's trying to get fit or trying to get in shape, but after a while, I'm a runner. That's who I am.
Yeah.
Because it's what I'm doing all the time. This is actually, by the way, the subject of my next book, which is called the EASE method for goal setting, goal getting. Haven't decided on the title yet. But that idea is that we become what we do, what we repeatedly do. As Aristotle once said, excellence is a habit. It's not something that we just decide. It's what we repeatedly do. So we want to do the things that are going to be best for us to become who we want to be. So if you want to be a writer, then write. Even if it's a paragraph a day, just write. Every day, do something. Write. If you want to be an athlete, exercise, go to the gym, work out, do something every day. So along the way, I developed this identity of myself as being, a teacher. I've been a teacher for a long time. When I was piano teaching to NLP teaching and hypnosis teaching. But I was a teacher. I was a coach. I was one of the first people certified by Thomas Leonard, who invented the field of coaching back in the 1990s. So I became a coach. So I wasn't just a struggling artist. I was more of a leader, more of a mentor or a coach for a lot of people. And that fits good. I like that. It fits well. And it really, the thing about coaching as opposed to being a therapist, although I've been trained in lots of modes of therapy, is that to me it feels like this. And this may be wrong, and coaches out there, therapists out there might disagree. But to me, it feels like the basic paradigm of coaching versus therapy is that coaching is about taking a person where they are and getting them to where they want to go. And therapy often is about finding out what's wrong with you and going back into your past to try to find the cause and the root of it so that you can fix it. Both are great, good, but I feel just more drawn to the saying, here, this is where we are, this is where I want to get to, and how do you get from point A to point B? As Tony Robbins used to say, the past doesn't equal the present.
Yes. Yeah.
It's what you do from now on that is going to be important for your life.
Well, it's cool that you brought that up because I've asked several of my guests, to help me define the difference between, therapy and coaching and the need for therapy. And I think there's, so many of us that at some point in our lives when things had happened, whether it's trauma or just things that we don't understand, where therapy fits in. But I've been, coaching track and a whole bunch of other stuff for the last 38 years of my life.
Oh, cool.
And I think of all the things, when I'm coaching, whether it's a business person or it's an athlete, it's looking at how do we make sure you get the future we're trying to get? How do I help you get that?
Yeah.
We're in the past is where, when we're thinking about, the therapy, it's like, how do we get you in a place so that you can be coached? You know, and I know some of it happens simultaneously,
Right.
but I can't get through to you if there's roadblocks and there's all these things that you haven't dealt with to even talk about what we do next because you're so busy in the past and sometimes living there. And that's why I think the therapy allows, maybe you can talk to me a little bit about, but that's where kind of the therapy helps us get to the point where we go, wait a minute, that isn't as important as I've been making it every day when I get up in the morning and thinking about it and dwelling on it and making sure. So now I can really start thinking about my future, but I don't know how to get there. I mean,
It's well said. And trust me, I've been in therapy. I've went to therapy for years, and I needed it. Part of the reason I got into NLP and hypnosis is I needed it. I didn't go into NLP. I didn't go into hypnosis because I thought, I think I need a career change. Maybe I'll do that. It wasn't that. I got into it because I needed the help. And what was great about the mixing of having both therapy and coaching, if you will, or the NLP and hypnosis stuff, is that with the therapy, over time, I could sit in my therapist's office every Tuesday at 6 o'clock or whatever it was, and we talk about stuff, talk about the childhood, and we would get deep insights into where all this came from and places where I had been challenged. I don't want to say damaged, but maybe damaged too. Damage happens. But then with the NLP and the hypnosis, there was something I could do about it. There is a way to actually make a change about that and to move forward and clear that obstacle so I could then get into coaching, as you said.
Yeah, and I guess with the therapy, well, either way, like if you were to find a good therapist, should it end or should it be something that goes over? And then if we jump to finding a good coach, should you surpass your coach or you still always need a coach? Maybe not the same way. Kind of talk with me about both of those scenarios.
Well, that's a very good question. It reminds me of a story. You know who Jack Nicklaus was?
Of course. Golfer,
yeah. Excuse me. He may be one of the greatest golfers, certainly one of the greatest golfers who ever lived. He had this really interesting habit that he did. Every year, throughout his career, he would go back home to his little hometown of somewhere in Ohio, and he'd go back to his original coach, and whose name was also Jack, so don't get confused here. So Jack Nicklaus would say to his coach, Jack, I'm a beginner. Teach me how to play golf.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And every year, this guy has won more Masters than anybody else ever, including Tiger Woods. He's won more than anybody else. And every year, he would go back to his old coach and say, I'm a beginner. Teach me how to play golf. And he would. The guy would say, okay, well, this is how you hold the club, and this is how you address the ball, and just break it down step by step by step. I think he was probably a quick learner, but still.
yeah, something happens when you've won all those. I'm just teaching fundamentals again that I picked those up pretty quick. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
that makes so much sense. And then on the therapy side, what makes a great therapist? I mean, is it that they get through stuff, or is it that they just help you open your mind to possibilities? What?
Yeah. Well, that again is an incredibly deep question, actually, because there is a whole lot that goes into making a great therapist. First of all, there's training involved. It's not quick to learn to become a great anything, really, but to become a great therapist really requires some study. These people are doing years of diligent, deep study, and they're doing therapy on themselves. They're going to therapists on their own. So they're doing deep analysis. They're really, really doing it, because you can't be a great therapist if you haven't gone through it yourself. If you haven't torn away all the layers of crap, to get down to your essence. If you haven't done that, it doesn't matter how many books you read. You got to have done it. You have to have done the work in order to guide somebody. But then the other part of it is that you in so doing, you develop a keen sense of appreciation, of insight, of just insight. It feels like intuition. It feels like a sixth sense. But it is all those things combined, because you know it for yourself. And you understand all the techniques and all the learning and knowledge, then you can say, well, something feels just a little off here. Could you talk more about that little part? You know, I remember when I once was going to a therapist, and this is a very personal story, but I'll tell you. My dad had died on my 21st birthday.
Wow.
And yeah, and I was pretty fucked up by it. And that's a technical term. I hope you don't mind. But um, it took me a few years to realize I needed therapy. But I started going to this therapist, and I was telling him about all this other stuff that was freaking me out about, the world ending and planets colliding and all these kinds of things, because I'd been experimenting with different mind-altering chemicals. And so when I got to this place where I happened to mention offhand that my father died on my 21st birthday, I said, "Oh, tell me more about that." And he kind of leaned in, and he wouldn't let it go. He wouldn't let it go. He just kept saying, "No, let's go back to the father part. Tell me more about that." So he just kept, so he identified his little sore point, and he kept pushing on it, just kept pushing on it. And it was pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. And that was an incredibly breakthrough session that ended up in tears. I was just in tears. And he asked me to wish him dead, because my father had been kind of an alcoholic person, and unresolved things in his own psyche that he never resolved. So it was a tumultuous childhood, let's just say. So there were times in my youth where I said, I wish he was dead. Right. And then he died on my birthday, as if I'd gotten like a birthday wish, like I'd blown out the candles. It's like, oh, it worked.
It worked. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So I didn't, nothing like that happened, of course. But he said, "Okay, I want you to wish me dead." And I said, "No, I can't do it." I said, "No, come on, wish me dead." "Okay, I wish you were dead." I said, "No, really, wish me dead." And I just couldn't do it. And I just I was frozen. And this tears started coming down my face, even though I didn't even feel like I was crying. It's just like these things were coming down my face. And he finally leaned forward and said, "You don't have that power. You could be here all day wishing me dead, and I'd still be sitting over here in my chair smoking my pipe," because he was smoking a pipe at the time. This is the 1980s, so you could smoke indoors in those days. But yeah, he said, "Your father died because he drank too much. Your father ate all kinds of things. He didn't take care of himself. He listed all these reasons, which were all true." And it was a stupendous breakthrough. Nothing like that would have happened in an NLP session. Nothing like that would have happened, in a coaching session ever. Ever wouldn't have happened.
Right. You brought up the word great. And when I think of, people who get great at whatever the craft is, and as long as you've been doing and coaching, and, one of the things when I'm talking to people, I help people with podcasts. And so, and we find out that most people never do more than 10 episodes, and they quit after 6 or 7 thinking, well, if I do 6 episodes and nobody's watching or nobody likes what I'm doing, I must be really bad at it. So I'm not going to do anymore. I mean, that's usually what I hear. And I think, have you been great at anything in your life after doing it 6 times? Like, were you good at tying your shoes after the 6th time you tied your shoes? What is it that's part of us that believes that somehow we're supposed to be great at stuff when we first get started?
Yeah. Great. You ask good questions, man. Well, have you heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Tell me about the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Okay, well, there's these 2 guys, one named Dunning and one named Kruger, who are scientists, and they did a study about this thing that happens with people where they have started something new, and they think they're great at it already. They think they're great at it. They think they're much, much better than they actually are. And so, you've seen this, by the way. You've seen this effect on people who are like auditioning for America's Got Talent. Right? And they think they're great. And they're singing and they're doing this thing. And you watch these auditions, you watch the tape of their audition, you go like, oh my God, what's wrong with these people? This is terrible. And then you see the exit interview where they say, "So how'd you think you did in there?" And they go like, "Oh, I nailed it. I was awesome. I feel great. I feel great about what I did." They haven't a clue. But the thing about it is, that's fine if you're doing something like that. But if you want to take that attitude to, doing heart surgery or
Yeah, no,
flying a
yeah.
plane or something, bad idea. Bad idea. So what happens along this curve usually is the Dunning-Kruger effect starts here, and then people realize they suck, right? And then they get really bad at it, and they don't push through. What needs to happen then is you need to sort of push through and start getting some skills, right? And it's a painful process that most people just don't want to go through. Which is why, I did an NLP certification course with Tony Robbins. So it lasted 15 days of intense, like dawn to well after dusk. I mean, 7 in the morning till 3 in the morning. It's 15 days like this. And that was just the tip of the iceberg, really. I've done dozens of those since with different trainers, right? I've worked my butt off, read every single book that ever been published on NLP and Ericksonian hypnosis, etc. People these days, they take a 4-day NLP certification course, go like, yes, I'm certified, as if they know it all because they took a 4-day course. They paid their $500 or whatever it is. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. But if you're a coach, you see the same thing, I'm sure. People who try out for track clubs, or I don't know exactly what level you're coaching at, but I'm sure you see the same thing. And then they get a rude awakening, and some of them quit, but some of them don't. And some of those ones who push on, become your best runners.
Well, and especially with track, it's the time is what the clock says, and they'll still tell you, they'll give you all the excuses why they weren't as fast as the person who was next to them, or that, the clock must be lying or something because I ran faster than that. I'm like, it's not like it's subjective or football, don't understand why you're not there. It's literally you're just faster, you're not, or whether you've trained and that kind of stuff at whatever level. But it's so amazing to me that, like you said, that effect where people just believe that they are the fastest or the best or whatever it is that they've decided and haven't looked. I don't know if they're just not looking in the mirror, but it stops so many people from achieving.
Yeah.
Because they're not willing to work at it because they think they already have arrived, I guess.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I've been teaching NLP. I've been teaching hypnosis as the certification level for years, like I said, since 1990. And recently, a process that was accelerated by COVID. I went online. I was doing this anyway, but it's like COVID arrives. It's like, you're doing it now. I got online. I started I had all plans to do the podcast. I'd had a stand-up desk. I had a ring light. I was ready to go, but then it's like, start now. It was pretty amazing what COVID did. But I've been teaching online now for several years, and I've honed it down to what I call essential coaching skills.
Okay.
And so I try to get, I don't do an NLP certification because it's a vast arena. I mean, it's huge. There's books that are that thick on NLP techniques. But what are the essential skills? So I look for that. I do look for that in all of the teaching that I do. It's like, what is the essential thing that you really need? Like Jack Grout, how do you hold the club? What are the essentials that you have to have in order to become a good golfer? I look for doing that.
Wow. We talked a lot about NLP, and you and I are not 25 anymore. We're not even 30 anymore. And so we've been around long enough to know and have heard it and been in circles where that makes sense. But for those that are watching now that don't really, you've been saying NLP for a while, maybe just give us a basic, like you said, there's books this thick that to understand it, but at least be in the context of what we're talking and how it would help an individual to be able to move forward in their lives.
Well, there are some very simple parts of NLP that are applicable immediately. But let me just give you a description for people who have never heard of it before. Neuro-linguistic programming is the idea that our brains are like a computer. So it's a neurological computer. It does amazing things. It takes in information, not just digitally, right? So it's not just, what's being typed into the keyboard, just the zeros and ones. But it takes, information in visually. So we get data, we get information in visually, we get sounds, and the way we hear the sounds and how the sounds are make a huge difference, right? Our brain unloads that really quickly. And when all this information comes into this neurological computer, we have programs that we run. We have programs that we run that we process that data in a certain way, and then we get a result out, right? So something happens, we have a result. Something we process it, we get a result. So what NLP is saying is that why is it that some people, take data in, process it in a certain way, and get this result, while other people take the same data in, process it differently, and get a completely different result? And what if you're doing this one, but you want to do that one?
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that? NLP says, well, there's a program there. So if there's a neurolinguistics, a language of this neurological computer, like it's the computer language of the brain, if this computer language, this neurolinguistics is present and we can decipher it, then we can program this brain to run a different process, and we get a different result rather than one that's been factory preset, if you will. So we talk to ourselves differently. A big part of the programming and processing is the way we talk to ourselves, the way we, internally represent that outside experience. So talking about is a big part of that, but the way we picture things, the feelings that we get, all these are part of the internal representations that make up our reality.
Which is so cool, because I think a lot of us don't realize that we've been doing this process our whole lives. Like,
oh yeah,
we weren't born with an operating system. I mean, we have a blank operating system, but a basic one.
And we weren't born with an owner's manual. Is what we.
There we go. That's even better. Yes, and to be able to now say, okay, so what have I been saying to myself for the 25 years or 21 years, when I'm a kid, and you go to school and all that kind of stuff, and people tell you stuff, and then you repeat a lot of what people say about you.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden you're older and going, well, why are the things that I'm doing not working for me the way it's working? Because we compare, right? We have this I don't know what it is that's in our mind that says we have to compare everything we do with somebody else instead of ourselves. And so maybe kind of just how have you been helping over the last, since 95, I guess 30 years, people reprogram the nonsense that they've already programmed into themselves, or just helping them understand that what I've been putting in my brain has been, some of it's good, but.
Well, I'm glad we have a long time.
Yeah, we still got another half hour.
So, one of my teachers, Dave Dobson, hypnosis teacher, who's one of the early teachers that I had of what I call Ericksonian hypnosis, he called other than conscious communication. But what he said is, I'm not a hypnotist. I'm a dehypnotist. He said the hypnotists in life, the real hypnotists in life, are parents and teachers and kids in the neighborhood and your older brother. I mean, all these people who said things to you that you took on and believed. Those are the programs. Those are the post-hypnotic suggestions that you believe to be true, that because you believe they're true, are true. Like you slip and tumble and your dad says, you're so clumsy. You'll never amount to anything. Right? We take that in, and all these times we try off a track, but we slip and fall. We can't try, we make it real because we believe it as a reality, So we're a dehypnotist. We wake people up from this trance that they've been in for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, however long it's been. Wake them up from that trance. We interrupt those patterns. We offer them new possibilities and see which one they sort of are drawn to. There's an idea that the brain will choose what's best for it if given the best options for that. If you create an environment where they can make this choice, they'll do what's best for them. So we try to interrupt the pattern of the old story, and create a new story for them to do. And by the way, that's also part of what I've been doing with. I'm part of a storytelling festival that's coming up soon in Woodstock, New York. I've been doing stories for a while now. My latest book is called The User's Guide to Storytelling. So it's a big piece of what I do. But I was really fascinated by one of the Native American presenters who's going to be the storyteller who was there, who was saying, it's very difficult to do psychotherapy in his nation of,
absolutely,
people. He said, because they don't have a word for self. They don't have a word, there's no internal representation word in their computer system for the self. He said, what we do is we are a collection of stories. We're a sack full of stories.
Yeah.
you know. And so the thing that you've been telling yourself, you know, I'm not a good enough, or I'm not strong enough, or I'm not tall enough, or I'm not white enough, or I'm not black enough, or I'm not this enough, or whatever. You know, all those stories we tell ourselves are just stories.
Yeah.
And if you can change the story, then you can, you know, change the trajectory of your life.
Well, when we started, you talked about your ease book that talks about goal setting.
Yeah.
And when I think about goal setting and in the context of what we're talking about, and I have some new views on goals now, like why would I set goals that I can't control outcomes, and I'm setting these outcomes that I have no ability to control? But on the other side of it, a lot of people, whether it's a resolution or they're told, they go to this seminar and they say, do these goals, do these SMART goals, do all these things. But if your program is not set up to be able to achieve that goal, you have to change the programming before you can even, I mean, you can attempt the goal, but you just continue this failure cycle of, why do I never hit my goals?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you really help people through? Is
absolutely.
Why are you making these dumb, I'm sure you don't say that, but why you can't make this goal right now because you have no ability to be able to achieve it?
Right. So two answers to that question. One is the ease process that I'm talking about is about, like we talked before, about changing our identity. Mm-hmm. So it is about achieving a goal. But let's just say, as an example, I wanted to become a runner. I have my goals, my mindset on running the New York City Marathon or something, type of thing. People do that. And so we set up a process for this person to say, okay, well, here's what you're going to do. You're going to run every single day, but you're not going to run a marathon a day. You're not going to run 50 miles a day. You're not going to run 10 miles a day. You're going to run something every day. If you have the time, if you have the energy, you'll run, let's say, a mile a day, depending on the person's ability at the moment when they start. Let's say you'll run a mile a day. So maybe that would be an extraordinary thing for you to do. Right? So that's your highest level. That's the second E in the word ease. Ease is an acronym for these 4 levels of goals. So this So the highest one is extraordinary. So that would be an extraordinary accomplishment for you to do a mile. That'd be huge for you. That's amazing. So we'll strive for that, but we'll also accept something that's not as extreme as that, but it's still a stretch, right? Because you haven't been running at all, it'd still be a stretch for you to do a half mile.
Yeah.
Right? So, and if you can't do a half mile, we will accept an acceptable level of a quarter mile, right? So if you get out because you haven't been running at all, I know you want to do a mile, I want you to do a mile, half mile would be okay, but if you just do a quarter mile, I will be thrilled with that. Right? That's a great start. But tell you what, if you can't even do that much, if it's like a crazy busy day or the weather's horrible, there's a hurricane out there or whatever, tell you what, at least lace up your sneakers, put on your running shorts and go outside go up to the corner and back, right? Just do something, get off the couch, right? Get your ass off the couch, because there's a law. I don't know if you know this, but there's a law. I think it's of thermodynamics. No, can't be right. But it's a law of something. Newton. It's Newton's law, where a body in motion tends to stay in motion. It's also got the second law. Maybe it's the first law. Maybe the background. But a body at rest tends to stay at rest. Right. So a body at rest tends to stay at rest. That couch potato will stay on that couch forever unless something gets it off that couch. Right. So we want to get it off the couch. So that easy level gets the wheels in motion, gets the body in motion. Then we say we'll do anything. Anything is good. Just do something. But every day you're doing something. Every day you're doing something until what? You start shifting your identity. Right? I'm no longer a couch potato trying to exercise. I'm a runner. I run every day. Are you kidding me? I run every day. And pretty soon those levels start to change too. What was really extraordinary is now just kind of acceptable, right? I can run a mile. That's easy, right? Yeah. So easy. Okay, let's put it down another level. That's what's extraordinary. 5 miles. Good. So we aim for 5 miles. We'll accept 3 miles. 2 miles would be great. 1 mile, that's easy for you. Right, so we change these things. So that's the first answer to your question. But the second answer to the question is, goals need to be. My neighbors are coming up the hallway here. I'm in my Brooklyn brownstone, and
gotcha.
Children are coming up the hallway, sounding excited.
Wow, that's cool. We love the sound of outdoor kids.
So, NLP says there are 4 keys to what they call a well-formed outcome. Some teachings I've taught it as 5 keys, and some people have 6 or 7 keys, but there are at least 4. And one of those keys to a well-formed outcome is that it is self-initiated and maintained. Okay. It's self-initiated and maintained. I need to be able to do it myself. Right? If my goal is to be, your favorite podcast guest ever, it's like, I have no control over what you think or do or believe. I have no control. I can do my best to be the best podcast guest I can be, right? I can be fascinating and flattering and all these kinds of stuff, but I can't make you do anything, right? I can't make you. So if my goal is to be your favorite, I'm out of luck, right? But I can be the best that I can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Absolutely. So one of those things is the best is self-initiated and maintained. That's one of the key goals to be well-formed outcome.
Yeah, because that was my whole, as I've been told, hey, you got to set these goals. And I used to set goals, okay, I need to have, let's say, I need to have 100,000 subscribers would be a goal that I would make. Well, what control do I possibly have if it's somebody who hits the subscribe button? Exactly. I can be the best host, and I can be the best, and I can do those things. I mean, I guess I could go buy 100,000 subscribers. But then the goal needs to be, I need to make enough money to buy them, right? Oh my gosh, that is so cool. And so as you're now, you're writing these books, and you're doing all these like incredible things to help other people understand. What would be the thing that you say you're able to help folks out with the most and where you're at? I mean, are you starting with beginners or just anybody on the spec? I mean, kind of walk me through the type of person that you're able to help as, people are watching this going, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But what do I do next? Or what do I start? Or how do I get going?
Okay, cool. Well, I do a number of things, actually. I am, as you said, I'm an author. This is my 3rd book that I'm working on. I've just released my 2nd book, The User's Guide to Storytelling. My 1st book was about the user's guide to sleight of mouth, which, like I mentioned, is a sort of subset of NLP. It's a conversational belief system. It's great for sales, etc. But so I'm an author, but I also teach those things. I teach storytelling classes, and I teach NLP and hypnosis and sleight of mouth. So I help people become good at those things. Okay. I'm also a coach, right? So people hire me to be their weekly advisor and mentor and coach. I tell people, listen, I'm not going to do it for you, but I'll help you set a well-formed outcome that you can do for yourself. Yeah. Right. And I'll show you the ease steps to get there, and I can, mentor you and push you and prod you. And just by the way, sometimes people do need exterior motivation, right?
Oh yeah.
You were talking before about, if you were a good runner, it should be enough to compare yourself to yourself, not compare yourself to that other guy who's faster than you or that person who's slower than you. But sometimes it's useful to say, yeah, I want to beat that guy. I want to catch up to him. I want to do my best to to catch up to him. It may be impossible. Some of these people are just amazing runners. I'll never win a marathon. I will never, trust me on this one, I'll never come close to winning a marathon, but I can strive to beat that guy. And by doing that, I can get myself to another level that I wouldn't have gotten to otherwise.
No, I hear you, because one of the things that I've thought through a lot is the difference between comparison and competing. Mm-hmm. And so I want to compete like crazy with people, but I also know if I'm comparing myself, I have a different experience.
There you go.
And so my experience and their experience and my abilities and their abilities, especially when you think about athletics, part of that's DNA and what God gave you.
Sure.
And so I can't compare what you were able to do. No. But I surely can compete with you with what I'm able to do.
There you go. Very nice. Very nice.
Really cool to be able to do. When we think about purpose, and you brought that up earlier as well, do you believe you're living in purpose? And maybe what does it mean to be able to find purpose in your life?
Yeah, that is huge, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like the driver. I mean, if you have, like the propulsion system of a thing. If I had the best bike or car motorcycle in the world, with the finest gear shifting and all this kind of stuff. But I had no motivation to ride it. If I had no competition to strive to beat, if I had no purpose to get on that thing to ride, I wouldn't. Purpose is everything, I think, in some regards. Without the purpose, don't get out of bed in the morning, right? So you got to have that, and it is an interesting conundrum, because what is your purpose? Is it a purpose that is a lasting purpose? Is it a path with a heart? One of my influences early on was a set of books by a man named Carlos Castaneda, who was said to be an anthropologist. So his first book was his doctoral thesis, where he was visiting with and learning from this Yaqui Indian medicine man named Don Juan Mateos. And so the teachings of Don Juan was his first book. And so one of the things, very beautifully written books that Don Juan always was teaching Carlos is, he said, is your path a path with a heart? Is it something that really is a true path for you? You might be motivated to beat that guy, but are you really a runner? Is that your purpose in life? You might be motivated to be the best, whatever, but is that your real purpose in life? So it really is a kind of question that you need to sort of sit back and sit with for a while. Like, what is your purpose? Because when you do connect with it, then you get on that bike and you ride like crazy. You have purpose, you have motivation, you have a reason to pedal, you have a reason to drive that incredible vehicle that you are. But without the purpose, there's no gas in the engine.
Here's my $1 million question that I ask most of our guests. And love to hear your thoughts.
This is the hard one?
Yeah, this is the hard one. It's going to be the hardest question I ask you that
Great.
You can't get wrong because it's your opinion. But it's when we think about purpose and living in purpose, is it possible to truly live in purpose without serving others?
Oh, God. Wow. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't either. I haven't found anybody yet who has said without the, and I tried to question, like I talked about on my last one, a guy that puts my printer together and puts all the parts together. But ultimately, if that's his purpose in life, to create this, he's creating a machine that serves others. Not even be directly, but I don't know if there's.
It's an interesting question. I have known a lot of people, and I've never known anybody whose behaviors didn't help others on some level. Like the computer guy or whatever. But even artists, like I said, I'm a musician still, right?
Mm-hmm.
I went to music school because I wanted to be a performer, right? I wanted to be a rock and roll musician, or I wanted to be a concert pianist. Either one of those would have been fine. I'll just keep playing and you decide where you want me to be. But even after I quit music, I'm still a musician. And especially since COVID happened, and I'm most of my time up in my little country house, which I have no neighbors that can hear me playing or singing, it's really great. So I spend a lot of my time playing the piano and singing up there, and nobody complains. It's great. But as much as I like that, I really like performing too. So I'll go out and do these open mics, and I'll just play the piano for people, and they sit back and they listen. And I long ago got over my stage fright, because I'm just sharing now. I'm not trying to prove anything, right? I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm just sharing. Isn't this pretty? Listen to this one. You're gonna like this one. This is nice. And it's just sharing, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, when I think that's a really good point, because the fear factor when you're truly living in your purpose is diminished greatly.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing it for you. You're doing it because of the pleasure you're bringing to other folks. And it becomes, like you were talking about in in our Native American culture, that if there's not a word for self, then what is the fear? Because most of the things we fear are ourselves and the things and how others will perceive us, or what we think others are thinking. But when you're truly serving somebody in your purpose, and that that's why you're there, you're not worried about what other people are, how they're perceiving you, because you're living that, right? You're living that life.
Yeah. for
Oh my
sure.
God. Yeah.
So, there are a lot of things I do without thinking about other people. Like when I'm sitting out playing the piano, I'm in my house by myself. I'm thinking about like Chopin, and I'm thinking about this particular chord sequence or whatever. But ultimately, as great as that is, and how satisfying it is, um, the greatest satisfaction is when I am sitting in front of an audience of people, and they get to experience it with me. Storytelling. I mean, come on, storytelling. It's storytelling. I can tell the story into a mirror. That does nothing for me. But if you put me in front of an audience of people and let me tell some stories, it's like, whoa, that's something. That is really an amazing experience.
Yeah. And I think about the whole becoming world where you go, our most incredible joy that we have is when we're learning or giving what we've learned to
Mm,
others.
mm,
Because you can learn all you want, right? Say you're in a bubble and you're in the mountains for 20 years and you learn as much as can be downloaded into your mind and everything. But if you don't have anybody to share it with,
mm.
it's like, how is there joy then? Because this is so great. Like just our needs as human beings to be able to share a great event or a great learning experience or a great thing that we put together, is that's where I guess true happiness seems to.
I guess. I guess. It's an interesting question, and when you stop and think about it, a lot of cartoons, right? You've probably seen some cartoons where people climb a mountain and there's this sage sitting on the top of the mountain, in meditation, and so, oh, wise one, what's the answer to life? As if that person who's been in the middle of, nothing for years, growing this,
Yeah.
they know the answers to life because, and maybe they do, maybe they do, maybe those wise people and those gurus on the mountaintops do know. But it's really interesting that, who are they sharing it with? And is it just a circuitry that needs to happen in the universe for the universe to just sort of be there in this brain and it's a weird thing to be thinking about.
Yeah.
But now that I was thinking about it's,
Yeah. Well, even monks don't live by themselves.
true. Yeah. And these are cartoons. These are probably not real people.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, just as I think about what you just said, even if they're internalizing and having everything and they vow of silence or vow of whatever it is,
Yeah.
they still live with each other so they can share inside relationship, I guess.
On some level, I'm sure they do. Yeah, for sure.
My last question before I just ask you to share is, I'm living in this world of AI now, as you are, and we're trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
How is AI affecting the things that you do, or is it something to embrace, or is it something to run from? And it doesn't even have to be this long philosophical question. It just could be in your mind right now. What do we do with AI?
Well, we embrace it.
Okay.
Yeah, because we influence it as much as it influences us. And if we go to AI with an open heart, kind of like what I'm talking about when I'm playing the piano in front of people or sharing stories with somebody, if I'm authentically wanting to share this from my heart, if we go to AI with that same thing, we shape AI. It learns from us. It's a learning machine, right? It's a large learning machine. That's what they are. So they're learning from the questions that we ask, our purpose for doing it, etc. So we are influencing AI as much as it's influencing us. So we embrace it for sure. That is the only choice. We must embrace it. Yeah.
So my last, what didn't we talk about that you wanted to make sure that we spend a few minutes on as we do this show? And sometimes I'm just so selfish because I ask you all the things that I want to know so I can learn. But I know you came on my show not just to have me ask you questions that you had to answer for me.
Well, no, I love talking. This is so much fun. I'd like to know from you, like, what you say you're a teacher or coach of track and field?
Track and field is what I've been doing for 38 years.
Tell me more about that. What do you do? Coach high school or what?
Right now I coach high school, but there's been times in my life where I was at the university and I got to coach some Olympians. And so
wow. Were you an Olympian yourself?
I was not an Olympian. I was an American, and I'm not as fast as the other Americans that I don't know if you remember. Yeah, you're old enough to remember Edwin Moses.
Oh yeah.
Right? And so I got to run in meets with Edwin Moses where I could saw his back. I know his back really, really well. And another guy that took Edwin Moses' record, a guy named Kevin Young, almost every other week when we were running together. and I saw his back all the time. There's a whole bunch of other folks that at least I got to be in the race. But yeah, and had I probably lived in another country, I probably would have been an Olympian. But we have such talent here. And God bless me. I'm not going to say he didn't. And I have enjoyed track and field for the last 38 years.
What was your main race? What was your?
It's called 400 hurdles. 400 hurdles is what I ran.
Oh, baby! That's why Edwin Moses was the back.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that was
impressive. I have run many a race, mostly 5Ks and marathons.
Okay.
That's sort of 5Ks and up to marathons. Did one ultra marathon once, but that was nothing to talk about. But like you, I have seen other people's backs a lot. There have been some tracks where I've been doing speed work, and I don't know who these people were, but they were doing something very different than what I was doing. I mean, they were just like, going around this track, looking effortless. Thank you very much. And just like running so fast. It was amazing. And then I was week before the New York City Marathon 20 years ago. God, I knew his name a second ago. There was an American marathoner who was warming up or doing something, working out in Prospect Park near where and he lapped. I did like 2 loops of the park. He lapped me 4 times, and it's just like, that's just not right. I'm sorry, that's just mean. You're a mean man. Good luck in the Olympics, buddy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I know. It's so sad. There's a really neat lady now who runs 400, Sydney McLaughlin, which is the best athlete that I can ever remember. And when I won nationals back in the 80s, early 85, I think I won, national championship. She is actually running faster than I ran to win nationals back in the day.
Oh my God, really?
That's how good she is. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's such incredible to watch. Oh my gosh. So how do people get a hold of you? How do they?
So let me get back. Do you have another minute? I want to tell people about my storytelling book.
Yeah,
because I think this is really, really important. It's really important to me that people learn about stories, because stories to me are central to who we are. And to be the ability to tell your story. One of the things that amazed me about Tony Robbins and Richard Bandler, and many other of these people that I studied with over the years, was their ability to tell a story, to really touch the audience and motivate the audience in a way that blew my mind. It just was amazing. And because I was around for so many years with Tony, with 10 years around Tony, I saw him do this over and over and over again. And it wasn't just like he would say, hey, that reminded me of a story. This was like a planned thing. This was a part of the seminar. So they'd, the people in the back, and I'd be hanging out in the back with the guys on the lighting, and they would lower the lights, dim the lights a little bit. Tony would sit down. Tony Robbins sitting down on a high chair. So he was usually pacing back and forth, full of energy. But now he's sitting center stage with just himself in the microphone, single spotlight on him, and he would just tell these stories, and he'd slow his speech patterns down, so he'd be talking kind of like this and speaking kind of quietly from the heart, and tell these just riveting stories. There was not a dry eye in the house. There was not, there was no pin drops. People were just like, listening to the story that he told. And it is so amazing to me. And I said, I want to learn to do that. And one of the things I learned from NLP is that you can take a program, right? You can take this ability that somebody else has, and you can say, how do they do that? And you can, find that program and install that program in yourself, if you will, so that you can do that. Again, genetics, I can never run as fast as Edwin Moses or do things that Tony Robbins can do, whatever, but I can do better for me than I have before. So I became a much, much better storyteller, much, much better trainer of NLP, hypnosis, whatever, piano teaching than I ever had been before, because I learned this skill. And that's why I wrote the book, The User's Guide to Storytelling, because I think it is so important that people can tell their own stories. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. And you need to be able to tell it so people get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Also, so good. And sometimes you got to, sometimes to get good at it, you tell other people's story. There's a game that we used to play all the time called Mafia.
Yeah.
And I could just make up stories the whole time. Well, when you played Mafia 1,000 times, you're pretty good at making up stories that then now, oh, I don't mind telling my own story because I'm good at the art of telling a story that people.
Interesting. I've never heard of that game. How's it go? How do you play?
So basically, it's not even a card game. Basically, you just have a group of people, and you play this with large groups, like 15, 20, 30 people.
Okay.
And the way that you play the game is you say, okay, we are a town. And the mafia is trying to kill the towns, and the towns is trying to find out who the mafia is so they can win. So either the town wins or the mafia. And so we use cards or whatever to identify like 3 mafia players. And, let's say we got a group of 20. There's going to be 3 mafia. There's going to be a detective. There's going to be a medic that can save, and then you say, hey, in the sleepy town of, New York City in Central Park, something happened, and, somebody died. So that you tell the town to go to sleep. So everybody closes their eyes, and then you say, Mafia, whoever the narrator is says, Mafia, wake up. And then those mafia guys, they wake up, and they say, point to somebody that you're going to take out. So they come together and they point to somebody else that's on the, and so that person, then you say, okay, mafia, go to sleep. Okay, detective, wake up. And the tech wakes up and he tries to identify somebody, and you as the narrator say, yes, that's a mafia guy, or no, that's not. Then you tell him to go sleep. Then you tell the medic to wake up, and the medics, you'll save somebody. And hopefully the medic's going to save the person that the mafia tried to take out, but he usually tries to save himself. And then so they go to sleep, and then you go, okay, the whole town woke up. Now, as the narrator, I got to tell a story, back in that Central Park, while he was walking, somebody jumped out, and Bob, he just happened to stab you in the heart, or whatever it is, and you are no longer here. And if the medic picked him, but the medic was there in time, he saw you and he saved you, and everything goes good. Or they don't know. And so now the town has a discussion. They have a town hall, and they try to decide who they're going to vote against. So let's say it's they say, well, I think that Doug is mafia. And then somebody goes, yeah, just the way he talked or the way he looked at us when he woke up tells us that he's mafia. And now I'll say, okay, so, as a narrator, I'll say, well, now you got to, everybody, the town's going to vote whether we're going to banish Doug from the town or not, based on you guys have decided for my first and somebody second. And now based on that, now, Doug, you have 30 seconds to defend yourself.
Okay, this sounds like a really rip-roaring game. Is there drinking involved?
Yeah, not usually, with our family anyways, but sometimes.
Because I'm thinking of having a drink right now after you're telling me.
Oh my gosh, but yeah, it gets pretty intense when people are trying to defend themselves as to why they're not mafia, and then town banishes them. So, so it's a fun game that we've been playing. I've been playing for 30, 40 years. So
really,
yeah, my kids love it. Every time we get together for Thanksgiving, they say, "Let's play mafia. Let's play mafia."
No kidding. I have to get a little bit more details on that. Thank you for sharing.
Cool. Well,
so how do people get hold of me? If they Google Doug O'Brien, they'll find me. I'm not the hockey player, but I'm Doug O'Brien. Doug O'Brien Hypnosis. Also, I have a website called Essential Coaching Skills, and my podcast is also Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. So that's a pretty easy way to get hold of me.
Oh, cool. Well, I hope you guys will get a hold of him. You'll find his books. You will learn the ease of making things happen for your life. And so thank you, Doug, for being on. Thank you for taking your time out of your day today to be part of our time and our time together. And so for those of you, if this might be your first episode that you've ever watched, go ahead and hit the button that says subscribe, hit the button that says that you want to be notified so that you will know that that when we have these episodes that come out, that you can listen to them, because Doug is not the only person that we've talked to that are telling their story. And like you said, story is everything. Do you have one last thought for everybody before we get off?
Just live boldly with purpose.
I love it. I love it. Love it. Love it. So thank you for being on today. Don't forget, you are God's greatest gift. You allow him to be. You can do whatever you put your mind to, as long as you put your mind to it. Hey, come talk to the people that can help you get there. Doug being one. Go out and check out his website, and we'll look forward to talking to you guys on the next one. Have an amazing, awesome, just incredible day today.